Hey boys, just before we start, how good was it to see the fast bowling cartel at work last night? Big Hoff, Starkey, getting it done again.
It was so much fun, wasn't it, watching the lads go about their work. Thought Starkey was top draw, early wickets. Thought the Hoff was excellent as well. And Nathan Ellis chimed in, got an early wicket. It was great. It was just great to see the lads up and running.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, yeah, we put the big Hoff, Josh Hazlewood, in our top five bowlers. I'm not sure, Flem, whether you did, but, he's just quality now, isn't he? He just knows his game so well, especially that short version of the game. So, some good stuff there.
Within 3 balls, I regretted not putting him in the top 5, but we've got to get into it. Before we start, though, let's do the ode to DK. Let's get the DK flick going. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fast Bowling Cartel. Hope you enjoyed the first episode of talking about fast bowling between 3 old ex-teammates enjoying our own company. Hope you're enjoying listening to us talk about some fast bowling stories, some ex-teammates, not so much the batsmen, but we are going to get into it today. We're going to review the Australians' definitive strong win against India in Perth last night, touch on the Ashes a little bit as well. And then we're going to talk about another category about our ex-teammates that we didn't touch on last week. It's the spinners. They're generally lonely, by themselves, a little bit weird. So we brought them into the fast bowling cartel banner to give them a bit of love. Joining me, as always, one of the greatest fast bowlers of all time. It's the man we know as the Pigeon. He was one-day cap 113, took 381 wickets. It's the great man, Glenn McGrath.
Flem, Diz, great to see you guys. Enjoyed it the other day. I'm not much of a podcast person, but you may convert me. So, it was good fun. Looking forward to it.
Well, what about your opening partner? The big Diz, you were test cap, one-day cap 127, Diz, 142 one-day wickets for Australia. Mate, how did you pull up from the first pod?
Pulled up pretty well, Flem. So, yeah, thank you for the introduction. G'day, Pidge. Really excited. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it? It was just great to hang out and talk some cricket and have a little bit of fun. So hopefully we'll do that again now and have a really good time.
Okay, let's get straight into the one-day win from Australia last night. Winning the toss, deciding to bowl. It's interesting, when they moved from the Wacker to Optus Stadium, the big fear was, they'll lose the pace and bounce, those amazing characteristics of the Wacker. Just about every test match I've seen live, it's certainly got the attributes of the Wacker. And we saw it on full show for the Australian fast bowlers last night. Pretty good effort in the field, and really it was a Mitch Marsh who's on absolute fire, isn't he, in white ball cricket for Australia, who led Australia home, and basically pretty easy in the end.
Yeah, a little bit too easy, wasn't it, Flem? I think winning the toss was a big one. There was a lot of talk going into that match that, the two greats, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, they haven't had a lot of cricket under their belt. How are they going to go? And I think they got found out a little bit on a pitch that's got a little bit more pace, a lot more bounce than what they're used to back in India. So, a little bit of a shame from that perspective. Rain affected. When you bowl first and there's rain around, it just makes it a little bit easier. So I think, unfortunately for India, it was very one-sided. Mitch Marsh, how good was he? Controlled that innings in the second dig, but Josh Hazlewood, the Hoff, he just shows his class in the shorter version of the game. I guess that's why I put him in my top 5 previously. But Flem, I don't think you did. But he was on song, just bowling that good hard length, getting that bounce, a little bit of movement, and really led the attack. So good win for the boys. Out of the 2 more to go, we'll see how they back up.
Diz, I was watching Big Hoff bowl and thought maybe I should have put him in the top 5 one-day bowlers of all time.
Jeez, he's in good nick, isn't he? He's great form, his run-up rhythm, everything is just absolutely superb. Thought he bowled beautifully, as he always does, really. I really liked Starkey's work as well. Runs in early wicket again. He's got that knack, doesn't he? He just gets those early wickets, Mitchell Stark, and I love how he's evolved as a bowler. A while back, he would just run in and try and just bowl really fast and try and hit the base of the stumps. There's a little bit more craft there. Noticed a couple of times when he was just at the top of his mark, he was adjusting the ball in his hand to go across the right-handers and try to swing it back in. So there's some real craft, and he ended up getting that wicket of Kohli, doing exactly that, going across him. Good catch by Cooper Connolly, which he added a bit of mayo to that, I think, the young fella. But look, all in all, I think the quirks did well. I thought Nathan Ellis, he got a wicket with his first ball. Bit lucky, leg side burgle, but leg side strangle. But yeah, he's doing quite well in Australian colours as well.
And Mitchell Stark just leading from the front as well, isn't it? I mean, just while Stark and Hazelwood and probably Cummins to come in, you think the Australians are always a threat, getting wickets early. Hey, what about Nathan Ellis? He reminds me a bit of Andy Bickle, just with that energy he has around the group. And, he's probably not going to play test match cricket for Australia. But, a wonderful story, leaving Sydney with no guarantee of a job, a job down at Tasmanian Cricket, gets in and he's developed these skills which are so adapt to 50-over cricket, but also one-day cricket and often bowling at the death.
Yeah, exactly right. And so he's got an interesting action, the way he runs in. He's got good momentum through his run-up, building in energy through the crease. A little bit of arms and legs everywhere, but he gets in a good position in the end and really powers over that front leg. He does get a little bit lower, but bowls such good areas, can mix it up with pace. And as you said, he's got good skills there. And, he's on show last night, picked up some wickets. And, I was impressed.
I'll tell you a man who's come in and done a really good job in test match cricket, but great replacement for Adam Zampa's Matty Kuhneman. I know he got dobbed a couple of times in the last over by Reddy, but there was an over where he bowled as fast as 107 kilometres an hour and as slow as 81. Like he is an awesome backup in red ball cricket and white ball cricket.
Oh, no question. And he's good in the field. He's handy with the bat. But his main skill, left arm orthodox, as you said, he mixes up his pace really well. So it's hard for batters to line him up. Yeah, he got hit for a couple of sixes at the back end, but he's hard to line up and gets in and out of his overs quite quickly. As you said, he is a very good replacement when Zampa's not there.
What about, from the Indian perspective, we pumped up Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli and they've missed out, but, you'd have to back them to get a big score at some stage. A man who impressed me so much, well, throughout his career, but last summer he was a makeshift opener, got runs in that England series. But in white ball cricket, he can adapt and play shots. Is KL Rahul. Do you feel like he's underrated?
I do, and they've sort of moved him around. I think he's nearly batted in all 11 positions at some stage. It must be tough for him to adapt, but I guess, he's one of those versatile players. He top scored for India last night in fairly tough conditions. So he's from opening down to, I'm not sure how low he's got, but sometimes that can mess your confidence up. But I think for him, maybe he's just used to it and just adapts. Obviously keeps as well. So he's a very versatile player.
Pigeon, how did you find it moving? Did you ever move to 10 or did you just bat 11 every game?
Yeah, I batted 10 a couple of times, even batted 9. But yeah, just didn't.
Jeez, did you get a nosebleed then?
No, I didn't feel comfortable. I prefer to come in at 11, hold the innings together, get people to their milestones. But
no, you're a very selfless player, Pidge, you were.
Yeah,
can you name names when you batted 9?
I think Craig McDermott might have been injured, and Stuart McGill was in the team. So McGill batted below me, and I actually told him to bat in front of me because he would go out and play a few shots because I think he had a less technique than I did. So give him a bit of a license, batting number 10, and then I would come in number 11. So I was happy there.
McGill was always hilarious when he walked out to bat, wasn't he? Because he used to run like Robocop, didn't he? And and he used to hold the bat like an axe. It was quite funny. It always gave us a giggle.
And he backed away, but he threw the bat at it. Like, he's not going to get runs every time, but when he did, it was quick runs, wasn't it?
Yeah, he didn't muck around. Certainly didn't muck around, Big McGiller.
You inspired my one-day batting, Pidge.
You reckon?
We batted once at the FCG, and England beat us. I don't know how they beat us. And you outscored me. And I just couldn't hit him off the square, and I kept trying to hit harder and faster. And I went, I'm going to have to have a look at my one-day batting. And I stripped it back to just no backlift, get bat on ball, get down the other end, and then eventually learnt to play my shot. So you're a very good batting mentor.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I think just clear that front leg. Or you loved your pull shot. You'd get that leg up in front of you to protect yourself. But,
but they don't bowl there at the death in one-day cricket. That took away that shot.
Yeah. No, I don't remember any memorable innings for myself batting one-day cricket. I was lucky enough to play in 4 World Cups, and I think in 4 World Cups I faced 4 deliveries. So, probably maybe wasted, but yeah, it was not my forte, sort of the shorter version, I don't think.
That is unreal. And on the Australians batting, straight away, Mitchell Marsh has been amazing, hasn't he? Opening up. I see his career strike rate's virtually 140 in T20 cricket, well over 100 in 50-over cricket. He's confident. He plays the fast bowlers amazingly well. And it's interesting, there has been calls, and you mentioned it last week, Diz, that, could he open up in the Ashes? And the only way that could work for me is if you had Khawaja and Labuschagne at 3, that second opener really has to get after him. I mean, he brushed it aside, Mitch, after the one-day game, but it's still getting asked that question.
Yeah, it is getting asked, and for good reason. He is in super hot form. I don't think he's been in better batting form, Mitchell Marsh, in his whole career. It's almost a new lease of life. When he was batting 3 for a while for Australia in white ball cricket, and he's moved up to opener. He's had some leadership opportunities as well. But he has downplayed it each and every time he's been asked in the media. He sort of laughs it off almost. He feels he's miles away, but I don't think he's miles away. I think he's a bit closer than probably what he thinks. I suspect. I thought the Renshaw selection was really interesting from Australia's point of view, picking him. Is that a pointer towards the Ashes? I'm not too sure, but yeah, I certainly think Mitchell Marsh is in the conversation, as is Renshaw, as is Constance, and as is Jake Weatherald. I think that's where the opener will come from, in my opinion. It'd be interesting to see which way the selectors go.
And Pidge, have you got any thoughts on that? I mean, Mitchell Marsh thought his career was over in that last Ashes, wasn't it? And Cam Green got injured late, and he come in, and I was commentating that game. It was an absolutely brilliant 100, but it was at number 5, and our pitchers are doing a bit. But I do think it looks like Labuschagne probably has to bat 3 after the runs he's got. They want to play Usman. That as I said, the second opener has to go after him. So that leads to Constance or Weatherald or potentially Mitchell Marsh.
Yeah, no, you could be right there. It's sort of, there's been a few Shield games already. I think we've got another one or more. So opportunity for a few of the openers there. No one's really put their hand up and said, pick me. Marnus has done well. He's scored plenty of runs. So like Diz said, I think, you nearly have to play him at 3. But, Uzi just hasn't been hitting him as well. I think he's good against the slower bowlers. The faster ones, he's not a spring chicken anymore. So, you want someone out there who's going to score quickly. Mitch Marsh, that game he played up at Headingley, it was like he was given a license. He thought his career was over, and he just went out and played. And that's what I want. I'd love seeing players do, and batsmen, and especially someone of his caliber and his power, is to go out there and play. If you just go out there and see the ball, play the shot, hit it with that power, you put it back on the bowlers. And, that's what I like about Mitch, about the Bison. But, yeah, Renshaw playing last night, I'm wondering if that's a little sign that will give him a little bit of international experience here, get him back into the vibe, the feel. I know it's a one-day, completely different, but it's that confidence of, oh, I've been picked again. I'm playing, one-day cricket. What was it, his first game? And just that confidence, I think, will make a big difference. And maybe that was a little sign there from the selectors.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I'm just thinking about it now. He opens with Usman in Queensland. So they've obviously know each other's games really well. Renshaw probably scores a bit quicker than Usman. So maybe that could be a different element. And the one thing I like about Renshaw is he made himself a three-format player. When he first started, he struggled to score in white ball cricket, but particularly playing spin in the middle overs. Yeah, he's very adept in white ball cricket. And then Philippe got a chance as well, didn't he, Diz? If you want to talk about Philippe and Renshaw.
Yeah, everything you said about Renshaw, just one thing about him when he plays spin, I think he hits a ball as hard as anyone going around. I know when he was a couple of seasons at the Adelaide Strikers, he was a nightmare to throw balls to with the dog stick. He was scary. Like, I'd make sure you have a helmet on and a box, and because when he hit the ball, it stayed hit. He can be quite brutal, Renshaw. As you mentioned, Philippe, thought he was pretty tidy behind the stumps. Didn't do much wrong. He looks at home at international level. And he's a nice little player, Josh Philippe. We've seen it. He's probably made a name for himself mainly in the T20 space, but he certainly didn't hurt his chances of more games going forward.
Now, Diz, you are the guy that works out all the stats, the methods. You are the methodologist in this. Can you please explain the Duckworth-Lewis Stearns joined those two? And are you a fan of this method?
Look,
what's Stern bringing to this?
I'm not sure what Stern's bringing to. No, I'm not sure what he's bringing to the table. But DRS is it's something that always creates a discussion. But I think I always harp back to why has it been brought in? It was brought in to get more decisions right, and I think we'd have to deep dive into the numbers a little bit. But I think what with what has been really highlighted is that more decisions, umpires actually get a lot of decisions right as opposed to get wrong. It's up over north of 90%, Flem. So that stat I do
DRS,
know.
Or are we talking Duckworth-Lewis, Flem?
Pidge, I knew you were onto it.
I didn't want to say anything, but I just I couldn't let it go.
No, sorry. Yeah, I'm in my own little fog. I'm in my own little fog at the moment.
You're not in your home space. You're away
I'm not in my home space. I'm just a bit flustered here.
You've never been happy with the DRS, and
no, I've never been happy with DRS. That's for sure. Yeah. Oh, gee whiz.
But I mean, it was originally, there was too big a disadvantage batting last, wasn't there? They'd just take the average runs per over, blah, blah, blah. But it's still weighted to the team batting second, isn't it? No, and you've got the 10 wickets in hand.
It's always weighted towards the team batting second because they know exactly what they need to do to chase down. And we've seen the modern game. We see it particularly in T20 cricket. Teams will, even in decent conditions, will more often than not bowl first because they know exactly what their target is. And then when games get shortened, rain affected, it's very clear exactly what you need to do to win the game of cricket.
Yeah, but one-day cricket's come a long way since we played, Flem. I remember when we first started, you'd score 200 and it's defendable. Now you score 330 runs and you think, I'm not sure if that's enough runs. So the game itself has changed, whether it's T20 cricket coming in, just adapted, shows batsmen that they can bat without fear and you can chase down anything. But, as soon as there's rain around, teams want to field first so they know exactly what they have to do.
It's an interesting call, that Pidge, because it did actually change in our time. Like I think I always tried to go under 40 runs Whereas I think if you go under 55 now, you're doing well. But when did you sense it? I mean, there was a bit around the 96 World Cup and the way that the Sri Lankan openers, Joe Surya and Kelly, went around it. And then I think from 96 onwards, it got tougher to bowl in those sort of 10 overs.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And, Sri Lanka, you mentioned Joe Surya and Kalawitharana, left-hand, right-hand combination, two guys that would go out there and just take the bowling on in those first 10 overs, especially with the field restrictions. And I think that changed one-day cricket. Obviously, they went on to win that World Cup in 96. And since then, to where it is now, I look back to that one-day match where Australia scored, 430-40 in Joburg. And it just goes to show, if you take fear out of the equation for the batsmen, they just have to go out and play their shots. Two things really going to happen. They're going to get knocked over for nothing, or all of a sudden they're in the chase. And that game showed, Herschel Gibbs, I think, scored a big 100 and got the guys over the line. And to chase down 440, whatever it is, in a one-day match was just unheard of. So it goes to show that anything's possible. Now T20s, when they're scoring 250 plus in a T20, it's the pro old bowlers are doing it pretty tough.
Well, think back to that game. Poor Mickey Lewis, I think he was the first guy to go for over 100. They're going for over 100 in T20 at times now. Actually, we had a question during the week, talk about Renshaw playing in the one-days and Hazelwood and all that. Did you guys find it that hard to adjust from going from one-day cricket into Test cricket?
I guess for me, it was early days. I had a plan for Test cricket, and I took that plan into one-day cricket, and it wasn't really that successful. It wasn't until, to me, Test cricket's about taking wickets, setting batsmen up to take wickets. One-day cricket, you mentioned before, Flem, that if you go for, when we played, my goal was to go for 4 runs or less. So if I bowled my 10 overs and I went for 40 runs or less, I felt I'd done my job. If I picked up a wicket or two, that was a bonus. But if you can take early wickets, it makes a big difference. But it was all about, restrictions of runs. And if you go under 40, then you've done your job. So it's a different mindset. T20 cricket, I thought if you go for 6 runs or less, again, it's about restricting the runs and putting the pressure back on because there's time. Whereas Test cricket is just about setting them up and taking wickets. So soon as you have a different mindset and different attitude and game plan, that's when you're right on top of your game.
Diz, what about you, preparation-wise? Could you go from playing a few one-day games straight into Test match cricket?
Yeah, I could. It didn't bother me too much. It was just about getting enough bowling in. You play a few 10-over games. That means you've got 30 overs in the bank, plus your training and your preparation. I always felt it was time on my feet. I needed that time on my feet to get accustomed to multi-day cricket. Was because say we won the toss and batted and we put a big score on the board, basically we knew as bowlers, mate, we're locking in for the last 3 days. We're going to spend the majority of the time in the field. So you needed to prep for that. In an absolute ideal world, playing a shield game was advantageous. But if it happened to be that there was one days, then that was fine. And you just make sure you get your training right and the amount of bowling you need, the amount of time on your feet you need in order to be ready.
Yeah, and it's just to use that training time too, isn't it? The change to the red ball and, for me, probably I'm going to bowl a lot fuller. When it wasn't swinging in white ball cricket, I was purely defensive and trying to upset the rhythm of the batsman. But mentally, that adjustment, I think, if you're bowling well and you're physically fit, you can do that. One other question we got. What did you used to do in rain delays? Like personally, I was a big headphones guy, wasn't I? Yeah. I just used to get them on, listen to a lot of heavy metal, and my mate Ace Frehley passed away during the week, my favourite band Kiss, so it's been a couple of tough days for me. Well, Warnie was always playing cards. What did you boys do?
I'm trying to remember, Diz. What do we do? I know the batsmen sat around and sort of would tell each other how good they were, but
Yes.
I don't know.
They did.
Just having a bit of fun,
Scratch each
bit
other's
of relax.
backs and just make each other lattes and decaf lattes. I remember eating a lot of toasted sandwiches for some reason. You just think, okay, we've got a bit of time to kill here. I'll have a toasty and maybe a cup of tea. Sometimes what I'd like to do was get Steve Bernard, our team manager, get his newspaper, and because he would read it from cover to cover. He would read every single article in the newspaper, and I used to take a lot of pleasure in getting a Sharpie and just putting lines through it. Looks like a redacted document, just so he couldn't read or cut out a paragraph of on a page, and it used to infuriate him. And quite often, more often than not, he knew it was me. But,
and Des loved his marker pen. So if I wasn't watching and I just got a new set of pads or a new bat or new gloves, I'd get out there and then all of a sudden I'd see someone signed my pads or my bat. There'd be Jason Gillespie on there. So you always had to keep an eye on Diz if you got the marker pen handy.
I remember signing down the face of your bat, Pidge, once, and you were ropeable with me. I think I signed every piece of kit that you had in your kit bag, but you got me back. You got me back in India 2001. I was batting with Tugger in Kolkata, the famous, infamous follow-on game, and it was quite a tense moment in the game. I've called for gloves, and the 12th come out with my gloves, and I've just quickly put them on, and I've gone to face up as I'm facing Harbhajan Singh. I look down, and on both my gloves it says, "All the best with your cricket, Diz," Pidge and signed Glenn McGrath. And I pulled back laughing. I walked up the middle of the pitch to Tugger. I said, "Look what this clown did." He got me back. And all Tugger said, "Well, you probably deserve that, Diz." And I said, "Yeah." But it actually was a light moment. It sort of released the tension in a way. It was a tense moment of the game. And, it was quite funny.
Let me tell you one other thing from that. Flem, one other thing I remember from that game, apart from the fact we bowled all day and Dravid and Lakshman just hit us to all parts of the ground. But Diz, while he was batting, he edged one straight to second slip, stood there, marked centre as if he didn't hit it. And I'm trying to think who the umpire was, just gave you not out. Like it was straight off the edge. So
I absolutely smoked the cover off it, and I did the Dean Jones mark centre and not look up, and just the hope, and he was just shaking his head. I couldn't believe it, and I think Venkatesh Prasad, he's just sort of teapotting it, just going, "What the heck's going on here?" It was very funny.
I believe Stuart Broad watched that as a young fella.
Much bad on it as what Dizzy did. So the umpire probably thought down there, so it must have hit it.
I just remember that test match. I got dropped after we won in Mumbai. Remember, that was the 16th win in a row, and I was slightly disappointed. But after you'd been in the field for 3 days bowling and I'm running out those Gatorades, I just caught a little glimpse of myself in the mirror. And, when you think, I look at myself and went, good one to miss, Flem. Good one to miss.
That was a good one to miss, mate. That was hard, yakka.
And talking about, the texture on pads, guess who used to do that in the Victorian dressing rooms?
Merv
Hughes. So he used to do it all the time, and it was embarrassing. You walk out and there's Merv Hughes all over, and texture all over your pads. And even worse than that, Merv still hadn't learnt to spell his name correctly. There was no R on there. It was Mev Hughes. Come on, Merv. Okay, we might wrap up the one-day game. So good win by the Aussies, 7 wickets, comfortable win. But surely Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli will come back hard in the second one day, I would have thought.
Yeah, no question. They'll look to bounce back. I think the pace and bounce in Australia, as you guys said, they probably haven't had a lot of cricket, as Pidgey mentioned. So just a bit of time to adjust. The Australians are on a heater. They're bowling beautifully at the moment.
Hey, boys, last week we explained that the start of the fast bowling cartel, we talked about the 2001 Ashes series, raising the ball for the fifer. We bagged all the selfish batsmen. But there is also one category in the team that a bit beloved by the fast bowlers because it was often a lonely group. There was only one or two of them in the squad. And of course, we're talking about spinners. And I'm going to chuck some names at you, and I think we have a chat about them. Of course, in our era, Shane Warne, Stuart McGill, Tim May, Colin Funky Miller, and Brad Hogg. If we start with the great man Shane Warne, can you recall your first memories of Warney, and then just one or two of the great highlights of the great man?
Yeah, I'm trying to think when I first remembered sort of meeting Shano, whether it was at the Cricket Academy or when I first made the Australian team. It's a while ago now, but I love bowling with Shano at the other end. It's still hard to come to terms with the fact that he's not with us anymore, but he was unbelievable. I thanked him for a lot of my Test wickets. He said he thanked me for a couple of his as well, which I thought was nice. But the one thing I always remember, he just had such great control. And his final Test match at the MCG, he was on 699 Test wickets, and he told me how he was going to take his 700th. It was about an over and a half before it happened, and Warney came over to me, goes, Pidge, I'm going to keep it tight to Straussy here, not give him anything, and if he's still on strike the next over, I'll keep it tight first ball, and then second ball, I'll toss it up. Andrew Strauss will try to slog sweep me, and I'll bowl him through the gate. So that was his exact words. Kept it tight, and then next over, he was on strike again. And so kept it tight first ball, gave him nothing. And then he pointed to me, he said, this ball, and he tossed it up. And I'm not sure if Straussy was listening in on our conversation. He didn't try to slog sweep him, but he tried to whip him through mid-wicket and got bowled through the gate exactly as Shano had predicted. And then he's off. Warney, give him a cricket ball, one of the slowest men in the world, but give him an AFL ball, you can't catch him. But this day he was off, we couldn't catch him. But the fact that he had predicted it and then executed it perfectly just shows what the man was like. But the thing I love even more, last Ashes series, I was in the UK chatting with Andrew Strauss, and I brought that story up, and he was devastated because he thought Warney had moved out mid-wicket. He goes, why has he moved him out? That's exactly where I'm looking to hit him. I'm just going to hit it through there and pick up some easy runs. And he thought, I just missed the ball. But when I told him he was set up and he fell for it, he was absolutely devastated, and that made me even more happy.
Brilliant.
What a great story. Hey, Deuce, what about yourself?
Oh, well, the king, as we called him, because he insisted on it, as you know. Warney, he would always check my spikes, my bowling boots, and he'd always make sure, because quite often I would bowl at the other end to him. And I didn't mind that because, for one reason, is that our front foot, we would land in a similar spot, relatively close to the in tight. And I would always hit the edge. If I bowled at the same end as him and he'd bowl a lot of overs, I'd always hit the edge of the foot mark, and it would make my ankle so sore. So I was happy to bowl at the other end, and he would check my spikes because he wanted me to have fresh spikes, and because my follow-through steps created the rough, and I was quite heavy on my feet. Not like Pidge. Pidge, you wouldn't know he bowled a ball out there. He was so light on his feet, but I was very heavy on my feet, and I created a lot of rough, and Warney would always check to make sure that that my spikes were fresh and ready to go.
Yeah, my first memory was, the first time I saw him was at Victorian training. He must have been so young. I just remember him getting bowled, the stumps just getting flying, and didn't really know much about his bowling. And then we had a youth tour to the West Indies, and it had a lot of guys our age, like Michael Bevan and Damien Martin, and two English players eventually, Craig White and Jason Gallion, who ended up playing for England.
For England.
And Warney lobs, and no one knows him because he didn't play in the pathway, and he's got white hair. He's just had a league season in England, so he's pretty round. But, it's like in England, and he loved a bit of vanity. He loved his sunbeds. So he was like orange. And I went, I think we've got something different here. And then he started bowling and, obviously he spun the ball a long way, but he just didn't have the control that he later had. But even then he was intrigued by the game. He was working on a flipper and the wrong one, and he trained really hard. And the other reason I remember about him on that tour that, hey, I think we've got something different. We went to the McDonald's in Barbados, and I think it was Warney, myself and Brendan Julian, BJ. He orders 2 cheeseburgers, Warney, and heaps of fries and extra salt. And then he sits down with us, and me and BJ watch him as he gets the patty, scrapes the cheese off the meat, throws out the meat, scrapes it back onto the bun, puts in these fries with the most salt I've ever seen, takes this big bite and looks at us. And you know what he used to always say, going, how good's this, boys? How good's this? And me and BJ look at each other going, yeah, I reckon we've got something different here. And he got 1,000 international wickets on that type of diet, didn't he?
His diet was certainly very different, wasn't it? I remember the lunch times, there'd be the big buffet at lunch, and it was this beautiful food. And he would have a packet of salt and vinegar sandboys, and I'd get a bread roll and just pull out the middle and stuff the chips in there and go his hardest. That was his lunch. So, yeah, a very different diet, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we did a bit of a survey at one stage, and Warney had to answer all these questions about his training, about his diet, about the way he went about things, and it came back and it proved that Shane would never make it as an international sports person, and he was one of the greatest of all time. So it's not just what you do, how you it's up here, and he had that mental strength. He just loved that one-on-one battle with the opposition, with the batsman, just wanted to win that battle the whole time, and majority of the time he did.
Yeah, when I think back at that West Indies tour, and it's a sort of a weird thing to say, now that Warney's passed, but looking back, he was he acted like a famous person that wasn't famous yet. You know what I mean? I think he always knew that he was just going to be famous. And the transformation from his bowling in that West Indies to his, first Shield game, 1 for 100. I think I caught Tom Moody, 1 for 120, 1 for 120 in his Test debut. It'd take someone with so much self-determination to get through. And the big change for me was England 93, the Gatting ball, and he dominated. But the change from the end of 92-93 Shield season to the first game after that Ashes was against full-strength New South Wales, Pidge. You were playing. That was that infamous game when you walked out to bat and we only needed 1 wicket to beat you, and your mate Darryl Hare said it was too dark. And you bloody walked off, didn't you?
Well, you can only go by what the umpire says, and that's all I could do, mate.
So they walked off, Diz. Can you believe that? We almost beat them out. But I remember that game, Warney, he'd changed in that 6 months. It was like Dennis Lilly and Merv Hughes' attitude, but he was bowling spin. And he just mesmerised this great New South Wales batting lineup, Taylor, Slater, the Wars, Bevan. And Tubby battled through the first session, right? Battled hard, didn't score a lot. First ball after lunch, Warney comes in and bowls a quick off-spinner, which Tubby nicked straight to slip out. Wow. And Mark Wall got one of the best hundreds I've ever seen, and I'm at mid-off, and the only ball that come to me was the one I caught when he made 120. That battle between Mark Waugh and Warney. But it was funny, that 6 months, as I said, he was a person that wanted to be famous that wasn't, got the skills developed, went bang in England in 93 and really never looked back. But that game was the one that stood out to me, how he changed forever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
he was something special. He was something special.
Okay, spinners around that time, because we often played 2 spinners. We were 12th man a couple of times, weren't we, Pidge, when they went with Warney and, of course, Tim May. who later set up the ACA, and every cricketer all around the world should be thanking Tim May for the job that he did in setting that up and giving a lot of security and contracts 97, 98. But as a teammate, he's in the top 3 funniest teammates that I played with, Merv Hughes, Tim May and Mark Waugh. And you debuted with him in South Australia, Diz.
Yeah, I played a bit with Maisie. We won a shield, that famous Sheffield Shield game, 95-6. Maisie he batted for an hour for a duck because we were playing to save the game. And he batted for just over 60 minutes and didn't trouble the scorers at all. Maisie could actually hold a bat. If you remember that famous Adelaide Oval test match against the West Indies, and Maisie and Billy McDermott actually put on a few runs down the bottom order, and I don't know how many Maisie got, but they obviously got within a run, and Maisie scored some useful runs there, made some useful runs for South Australia. I think he even had a first class 100. Great character. Wrote a great book called Mayhem, a truish version of Australian cricket tour. I think it was to Pakistan, Flem. I'm not sure, but yeah, very funny man.
Pidge, your thoughts about Maisie?
Yeah, no, he was good value, Maisie, wasn't he? He played 24 tests, 75 wickets. So, he was a steady player. He just brought that something different to the team. And the one thing I always remember was Maisie was explaining, when you watch a group of people walking past, he was trying to work out who the batsmen are, who the bowlers, fast bowlers are, and who are the spinners. And he said the off spinner you could always work out. He said you'd see a group of people walk past, and if it looked like someone just lagging behind, he was limping, didn't look quite right, he said that's the off spinner. So they're a funny breed, the offies. They're completely different. Leggies, I don't know, they give it a fair rip, but when you just come up there, you're a finger spinner, you toss it up. It's a tough job, isn't it? There's a good chance, like someone like Mark Waugh said, he didn't really rate any off spinners. He thought you should try to hit him for 6 every ball. But Maisie, he was quite a wily offie. He just, he was brain in the team as well.
Well, I reckon Pakistan 94, if we were there for 10 weeks, we roomed together for 8, and you really get to know someone there. And somehow we found this VHS of Top Secret, a very funny movie written by the Zucker brothers who wrote Flying High, and we knew it line by line. Don't worry about that because you're watching it every night. And the other thing is, how injury prone was he? If someone hit a ball out of the nets and he would be 100 metres away and someone would go, watch out, and he'd look up and it just hit him in the head, wouldn't it? And it happened twice, 3 times every tour, wouldn't it? He was
poor old Maisie, I think. Until Michael Bevan came into the team, I think Bevo took over that. If you throw a ball in a crowd and it's going to hit someone, it's going to hit Bevo. But I think Maisie was the other one. So it's just one of those unlucky people.
The next one, I talk about Pakistan, 98, Stewie McGill. I think he'd only come in with, it might have been his second test, the first test, which we won. We hadn't won there for 40 years. And I think about that series and then the Ashes series after that when Shane Warne was still recovering from a shoulder injury or finger injury. McGill basically won those 2 series. Like, when he was up, he was an unbelievable bowler.
Yeah, well, he was. And he just gave it a real rip, didn't he? For someone like Stuart McGill, leg spinner, to play the same era of Warney and still take over 200 test wickets is phenomenal. Sometimes you had 2 leggies in the same team. When you had Warney and McGill in the same team, it never really went that well. I think Warney wasn't overly impressed. I think it was more a competition between the 2 leggies, whereas McGill didn't care. He just ran in and gave it a good rip. But, geez, he gave the umpires a hard time as well. I've never seen someone get stuck into the umpires like McGill used to. But, it goes back to that infamous match, that 99 Antigua test match where the great Shane Warne was left out of the team, got dropped, Steve Waugh dropped him, and McGill played. And, I don't think Warney ever forgave Stephen for doing that, but it shows the calibre of McGilla. He was 200 Test wickets when the Great Warning, same era. He's still pretty special.
You talk about giving umpires a hard time. You weren't allowed to encourage him at mid-off or mid-on, wasn't it? If you said, come on, McGilla, don't talk to me.
The funniest thing about McGilla, sometimes when he actually took a wicket, he looked annoyed that he had to take the wicket. He got angry because he actually had to take the wicket. So he was a little bit different from the rest of us.
But he was a spinner. We gave him a bit of love too. A wine connoisseur. He was reading 4 or 5 books a week, wasn't he, Diz? He was a different character.
He certainly was, and great company. One of my funny memories of McGilla, I think we were playing Bangladesh in Cairns, and I was at backward point, and McGilla's bowled. Batter has cut it to me on the full, and I've dropped an absolute soda, like the easiest catch of all time. And at the time, I'd been calling to G up McGilla because I called him Huge Melon because he's got a big dial, and so I'd say, come on, Huge, and then I dropped the catch and I went quiet for a little while because I didn't want to upset the great man, and then after a while, I just yelled out, come on, Huge. And this was like an over or two after I dropped the catch, and he just stood there and he stopped and he just stood there. He had steam pouring out of his ears. I looked to Gilly. Gilly was behind the stumps. He pulled away. He was crying with laughter and just saying, Dizzy, you got the audacity to do that after you dropped a sitter off McGilla. You know how temperamental he can be.
I remember in the nets, I think it was in Pakistan, you know how the local bowlers just that excited to bowl? They often run in when you're looking up. And McGilla got bowled once and you just heard him yell out, mate, if you do that again, I'm going to ram this bat down you. Yeah. And then, I reckon 90 seconds later, you hear the same thing and McGilla goes, right, and he just grabs the ball and he just smashes it go fetch that. And I remember our coach, Jeff Masters, was watching all this and I walked past, I said, Swamp, what about McGill? What are you going to say? And Swampy just looks at me and goes, McGilla, psycho. And then he just walked off to the dressing rooms. Swampy just left. Didn't even take it on. But this is what spinners do. And talking about different personalities, this guy was probably as well loved as any teammate we had, and maybe the most remarkable story, and that is Colin Funky Miller, who for 33 years bowled, well, probably not when he was 1, 2 and 3 years of age, but he bowled outstanding outswingers and then decides to bowl off spin, took 70 wickets in a Shield season. And you talk about his record, Pidge. His test record's wonderful and a great character.
He was handy, wasn't he? And he was a character. There was no doubt about that. I remember that match that we played, test match at the SCG against the West Indies, bowling to the great Courtney Walsh, and he took his baggy green off, and his hair was blue. And poor old Courtney, he couldn't even face up. He was laughing that hard. So. He dyed his hair all these different colours. It was blue, I think it was red, it was this and that. It wasn't Jamaican brown, as Dizzy used to put that colour in his hair, which you haven't done it for a while, Diz, but that was funky, wasn't it? He just...
Don't know what you're talking about, Pidge.
You're looking good, mate. Just that natural colour. I think you were probably that colour from the age of 22, weren't you? But, so...
I'm not saying
funky putting a bit of colour.
Is this pile on Dizzy Day, is it?
Mate, you lost us when you started talking the DRS with the DLS. That's where we lost you.
Well, I was been a bit flustered today. It's been a long day. But Flem, as you mentioned with Funky, he had the nickname in the Lancashire leagues, Swiller, Driller, Killer, Chiller, Thriller, Miller, as he was just this large-and-life character. they'd say it, and I can't do a Lancashire accent, but they'd say, did double, he did, as he got the 1,000 runs and 100 wickets in a season. And I think he played for Rawtenstall Cricket Club in the Lancashire League. Like, he's an absolute living legend there. Funky, played. He went over there for many years, Flem, didn't he? And did so well.
Yeah.
But he's a great story.
And if there was a Scotch and Coke to be drunk, he drank it.
He did enjoy that. I do remember when he got picked to go to Pakistan, and he was 34 years of age, and he said, I'm not sure if I'm going to get a game, Diz. I said, mate, you're 34. They're not taking you for work experience. They're taking you for a specific role. And sure enough, he played a prominent role, did really well.
Yeah, his record, I think he averaged 25 a wicket, fantastic. And not surprisingly, imagine that blue hair now in this Instagram, TikTok. He would be so famous, wouldn't he, Funky?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was just brilliant. And not surprised, for the people who don't know, he married Cindy, an American. Actually went across. They got married in Hawaii, but they've been living in Las Vegas for years. And recently, I think they've moved to the Bahamas. So, Funky listened to the first episode and just sent a photo of him on the beach on the Bahamas. So we'll be maybe we need a fast bowling cartel, because he does sort of drift into that with his fast medium outswingers. Last but not least, this guy, particularly in one-day cricket, was an outstanding, once Shane Warner retired from one-day cricket, Bradley Hogg.
George Bradley Hogg. I do remember 96 in India. We were in Delhi, and he was rooming with Stewie Law. And Stewie Law, I think, wasn't quite sure how to deal with rooming with Hoggy. As Hoggy used to get up really early and all that, and sometimes he'd say things that were a little bit silly. But there was this one day that the level on the hotel we were staying at had all these drapes, everything draped over. There was paint tins everywhere, paint brushes. It was clear that the hotel was redecorating, repainting, and Stewie just said, "Oh, gee, that paint smells strong." And Hoggy, in his own little fog, has gone, "Oh yeah, someone must be painting." And Stewie's got to looking at him going,
is he taking the mickey?
What are you on about? Oh, yeah, is he taking the piss out of me here, or what? What's going on? And I don't think Stewie and Hoggy were they found it challenging to room together. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I don't think they got split up much either.
The other thing there was that Hoggy was an early riser, and when you had a roommate, he'd have too much energy. He'd be doing his sit-ups, his push-ups, and occasionally walk past the bed and accidentally kick it. And then, "Oh, sorry, are you awake, Stewie?" And just, it was a nightmare to room with. But on a positive side for Hoggy, I think back to that 2003 World Cup when Warnie got sent home from taking the diuretic and was out for 12 months. And, George Bradley really stepped up, and, history shows that we went on to win that World Cup, and Hoggy played a big part. So, yeah, it was, that left arm leggy is, he was actually
he was a fine bowler.
Great control for a left arm wrist spinner who started as a middle order batsman. Probably my favourite one with Hoggy is Ricky Ponting tells this one. They were in Colombo in Sri Lanka, and he noticed Hoggy wasn't going out and used to go out and shopping in England and all that sort of stuff. And for a couple of days, he was just by the pool for a few days. And, a punter's a very perceptive person, isn't he? He likes knowing everyone's little personalities, and he picks up, and that's probably why he's a great captain and teammate. Something's not right. So after a few days, he goes up to Hoggy and goes, "Hoggy, what's going on? Normally you get out and go and do things, you're a man of the land." And Hoggy looks at him and goes, "Mate, I'm not going anywhere. I've heard these Colombians don't mess around." Colombians in Colombo.
That's Hoggy. Always got some good Hoggisms coming out.
That is Hoggism at its best.
That is gold.
If you haven't, look up his one-day record.
Yeah,
It's statistically very similar to Shane Warne, the man that he took over there. So
he was excellent. He was excellent. Won 2 World Cups. He was fantastic for Australia.
So from the FBC, we've crossed off now the batsmen and the spinners. I think we need to have a chat about the wicket keepers maybe in the next episode. But gentlemen, that's it for episode 2. We encourage everyone to subscribe and like on the Apple, Spotify podcasts, on YouTube. We've been getting a lot of views on YouTube, and thanks for all your comments as well. And I think next one, I think we're going to get a little bit of a guest, an ex-teammate of ours. But also we might just divulge if we get many questions on the specifics of fast bowling, because you two guys in particular are two of the greatest fast bowlers going around. But any last thoughts, boys, for episode 2?
No, thanks for that, Flem. Pidge, it's been a lot of fun chatting. I got a little bit confused between DRS and...
Well, I'm going to go back and use the DRS to actually look at what you were saying when I asked you about the DRS there.
Perfect.
But, but as we close, we are the Fast Bowling Cartel. And thanks for joining us. Make sure, as you said, you like and subscribe. But for the DK, once again, boom. Hope you enjoyed the episode.